Good evening, and let me just push that button. Tonight I'm doing something a little bit different from kit building and from general waffle. I actually have this device, which is on the front an Inkel PT-9107 digital tuner, and what can I say about it? It's your standard sort of AM FM radio, but this is actually designed to go into an equipment rack for a sound engineer to basically help him set up the sound and to listen to the radio while they're setting up the rest of the stage show. Now, I've got the mains in and I've got this connected to the antenna socket for FM, and if I power it up again, it should go back to the station I was last listening to. Now, the biggest problem I have with this, and let me just grab the camera and see if I can bring it in a bit. You can probably see that there's absolutely nothing on the display. There's no lights on the front at all. So what it looks like is the LED or the lamp behind the LCD display has actually broken. So that's why this device was probably thrown away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the illumination at the back of the LCD and see where we go from there. I also noticed that it has a fault with this button here, so we'll see if we could repair that as well. Let's just take it apart and see how it goes. Rather than have you watch me undoing lots and lots of screws, I'll get it to pieces and I'll show you what it looks like. See you soon. Right, okay, here we are. I've tuned away from the music station just to show that it is still working, and I don't get copyright infringement that way. Now obviously this at the moment is running on the fixed volume output, which is here. I haven't seen any output on the variable volume output. Let's just plug it into my mixer, and there doesn't seem to be any output at all. Oh yeah, there we go. So there's a loose connection on this board here, which as we can see, that's another little problem we'll have to fix, as well as the LED. Now, looking at the way all this wiring goes, I've got a very good feeling that this is the illumination for the LED, purely by its location and the fact that the display is here and it's normally fed from, there's two, looks like sockets for lamps there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the multimeter, and what I'll do is I've got to leave it on, idiot. I'll turn the volume down and I'll put the multimeter on, and what I'm going to do is if I put that over there, I shall first of all measure the voltage there, and it's 14.89. Right, okay, so call it 15 volts, and if I get it the right way round, there we are, we have 14.89. So let's just check the other end of the wire to make sure that I am actually looking at the right thing. There you go, 14.89, 14.9, so I am correct in assuming that this red wire is the lamp's feed. Now, I'm just trying to see where the solder marks are on these two lamps, and I'm getting absolutely nothing from the lamps, so it looks like I'm looking for a broken trace, or a broken lamp even. So what I'm going to have to do is decide, A, I'm going to have to take this apart and find out where the lamps are, and B, once I've done that, I will have to decide how I'm going to replace them, depending on the type. Now they look like they're glass filament bulbs, but what I was thinking of doing, and especially seeing as that's 15 volts, is I might actually replace them with some of the surface mount LEDs, some of the the standard square surface mount ones that come on the strip. All it needs is to light through. They don't need to be particularly bright, just bright enough to see what's going on. So I could quite easily do that, as I say, with a small strip of LEDs, and probably put a pot in there just to change the illumination level. So from there, let's take some more of this apart and actually get down to the nitty-gritty of repairing this board and repairing this front panel. It looks like the rest of the radio is actually working fine, and even in a piece of professional equipment like this, there's not really a lot inside the radio. It's mainly you have your transformer here, you've got your mains power supply here, your filter caps, you've got a voltage regulator there, 7805, so that's a 5-volt regulator which provides all of your voltage for this particular chip. There will also be a 12-volt regulator probably attached to the other end of this to supply the voltage for everything else. The main switch here actually is firing up, I would imagine, through that relay, and there's the voltage, the volume control wire there coming all the way back. So it's fairly modular and fairly easy to sort of understand what's going on here. It looks like a capacitor as a battery backup, so it's a super capacitor to run as a memory backup device. Okay, let's get the front panel off and see if we can figure out what's going on. So the first thing to do, I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to pull out the mains plug out the back. Just another thing while we're here, obviously your mains is here, your direct earth to the chassis here. You'll notice this great big block on the end of here. That is actually a filter, so that any line noise coming in is eliminated from the audio chain, just to make it sound that little bit sweeter. Obviously, if you're going to run this through a 10 kilowatt PA system at a gig, you really don't want to be hearing buzz or mains spikes or anything like that. So yeah, there we go, just a mains filter. So let's get this front panel off and see if we can actually get to this circuit board. It looks like you have to take pretty much the entire front panel off to get to that. So I shall be back again shortly with some more bits and pieces, and it will give me a chance to look at how the button issue can be solved as well. Back in a moment. Right, okay, here we are. Now we've got the main board out, and there's the LCD display, and unfortunately it's actually soldered direct to the board, so I'm going to have to desolder that. Looking at this button assembly, it looks like the buttons are literally just held on by a thin piece of plastic on one side, and I don't see how I'm easily going to repair that. I might actually have to put a piece of tape or something. It's literally just a thin pair of sort of standoffs, a bit like on the old model kits, the bits you used to break off to get the parts out. I shall work out a way of doing that. The other option is to put a longer stalk on the switch and maybe glue it to the button to the actual switch itself, because I do actually have some tactile switches with long buttons on, and that might be the answer, rather than fixing it to this part, is just to have it fixed to the switch and make it work as a single sort of push button that way. But yeah, that's I've got to say, that's a pretty crappy design of switch, really. So I don't know if you can see in there how they just push against the tactile switches. So right, I suppose I'd better start desoldering all of these, and for that I will need go with some solder braid, and I might actually chop these off a little bit more flush first, so that I can get the board out. Right, now that should be unsoldered. Now we've just got to unclip it, then give it a little bit of a wobble. Right, okay, so this is the display unit, and these are the two filament bulbs that shine through. And basically it looks like these are just two lamps in parallel. You've got a common negative there, so two negatives and two separate. So what you've got effectively is you've got a 15 volts to each of these lamps. So what I've got to do is I've got to effectively replace the lamps between sort of this point and this point, and there's plenty of circuit board to take a connection off. So it's just a case now of figuring out what sort of LEDs I'm going to use, and deciding on which would be the best way of doing it, whether to stick them to this bit of board or to use discrete LEDs and actually have them shining forward, because I could actually attach sort of 4 LEDs with a resistor on each to each of those, or I could actually break this trace about here, put a resistor in on the positive line, or even put it in on the negative line, and then mount the 2 lamps behind the panel. All they have to do is shine through the back of here. So let's decide which way we're going to do this. Okay, so after a bit of faffing and farting around, move that back out the way. What I've done is I've mounted these 2 festoon lights, which originally came from replacement interior light LEDs, with these wires to the board. Now I've had to shave a little bit of the plastic away on the edges to get this to line up, but all I've got to do now is refit the display, and then I can test it out. So let's just clean up the holes, and then obviously I've got to fix that through hole that I damaged. But we'll just clean that pin off because that looks a bit scabby. Let me just fit this back into the board, and we can clean it up and give it a go. So let's try by getting the pins aligned first, I suppose, and then we can worry about clipping all the clips and everything else in. I do have a little bit of slack, not a great deal, on the wiring here, so I can move these up and down and side to side. I say that one will probably have to go that way a bit more so that that hole will clear there. Yeah, that's why I just gave it a little bit of leeway. But yeah, you know, wiring it like that means I don't have to glue anything. The Kapton tape there is just to insulate the traces from the old holes from the backs of these. Even though these are fairly well insulated, I'm just not going to take the chance of anything shorting out. So that's what I've done there. So let's put this back together and see if we can make it work. Now, this is always the problem with getting these multi-pin devices in, is getting them to line up again on every pin. So rather than you watch me trying to make a complete balls up of it, I think I'm going to pause the video again and come back to you once I've fitted this back onto the board. See you in a minute. Okay, so what have we done so far? Let me turn the volume down. Well, what we've done is we've made the display work, and that is why these two resistors are here. Basically, I've put a pair of 470 ohm resistors in there to actually dim the display down, because I actually found it was slightly too bright as standard, and I couldn't be bothered to change the surface mount resistors on the board because they were just too awkward to get to. That's the words I'm looking for. As for the volume control, let's see if I can get it a little bit closer into the camera. No, not that way. Let's see if I can bring this round this way. I will get it round there. What I've done is I found that the ends of the wires were broken, so I've just hardwired them straight to the back of the control, and now it's all working. Let me just get a preset up. There we go. And I can now wobble the wires and not have to worry about them being loose in any way. So what else can I say? There we go, from something that was thrown in the bin to a working unit. It's done the job. It does exactly what I want it to do, and yeah, there we go. Hope you enjoyed the video, and all I've got to do is put it back together, and that'll be the end of it. Thanks very much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.